The rust-red sun hung low in the blistering sky of Ran, bleeding its color into the charred ground and casting long shadows over the jagged rocks that dotted the landscape. Diamond-shaped leaves chirred overhead. A chilling symphony of shrill calls echoed through the air, mingling with the growls of unseen predators. This was no place for the faint-hearted. Keeping her breathing steady, Mira crouched behind a boulder, checking her pulse rifle for the fourth time as she filled her mind with thoughts of Earth. "Don't think about home," she whispered, shaking her head. Focus, the last expedition had ended tragically, and she was determined not to let her crew share that fate. To her right, Taylor's jaw twitched with unease. He ran a hand through his close-cropped hair, glancing nervously at the undulating canopy. "You sure about this?" he murmured, eyes scanning the treetops. "Cresta said we'd see movement here, but the only thing creeping around is me." "Relax," Mira replied, her tone steadier than she felt. "Fetters are known for their hunting streaks. If we stay still, they'll come." "Fetters," he hissed under his breath, a mix of awe and fear lacing his voice. These carnivorous beasts had been the stuff of nightmare since the first reports came back to the council. Towering figures, thick-skinned and hungry, with claws that could shred through metal. Every mission was a gamble, but every bounty promised a way to fund their next stop back to the colonies. Mira adjusted her visor, squinting at the sun's glare as she glanced back at the small clearing where they had set their trap. A crude device made of leftover tech, it shimmered with desperation, a half-baked attempt to lure the predators. Between the cracks of the rock, the low hum emitted by the trap thrummed against the silence, promising danger laced with a shred of hope. Before Taylor could reply, a deep rumble shivered through the ground, and Mira's heart raced. "Get ready," she whispered, steadying her rifle. She spotted movement through the brush, silhouettes emerging from the shadows, massive bodies brimming with raw power. Suddenly, a shadow darted forward, dark and sinuous like thunder unchained. A fetter. It lumbered into view, its thick muscles rippling beneath the coarse hide, eyes glowing with primal hunger. Mira steadied herself, breath caught in her throat, but her finger twitched on the trigger, ready to fire. "Now," Mira commanded, heart pounding as she pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, barely breaking the stillness before it sunk into the Fetter's flank side, a trickle of alien blood spraying into the air. The creature paused, briefly stunned but more enraged than frightened. It whipped around, eyes narrowing on Mira with an intensity that made her shiver. Then laughter erupted. Not from Mira, it came from somewhere behind the fetter. It was a sound unlike anything she had ever heard. Surreal and haunting, tinged with glee and dark amusement, it pervaded the air with a life of its own. "Look at that bit of fluff. What a joke." The laughter rippled through the underbrush, drawing more eyes. The fetters froze, their predatory instincts flashing like warnings. They seemed to take a deliberate step back, as if recognizing a challenge far greater than the threat of dying today. Just as confusion settled in Mira's chest, a figure stepped forward, emerging into the dim light of the clearing. Decked in mismatched armor that shimmered with a glow as odd as the laughter itself, the figure bore an unmistakably human gait. "Come on," the newly arrived human shouted, a cocky grin stretching across his face, revealing a sense of recklessness that made Mira uneasy. "They're not tough. Their worst trait? Bad jokes?" The fetters, once poised for a deadly charge, lingered backward, teeth bared, unsure and unsettled. Mira blinked, trying to process the wild audacity of the new arrival. "What are you doing?" she yelled, bewildered. "Get back." "I am back, aren't I?" he shot back cheerfully, despite the obvious danger. "You know, I thought we had a mutual understanding. I'm hilarious and these guys are poorly given the time of day. I figured a good laugh might scare them off." "Are you out of your mind?" Mira's pulse raced, disbelief overtaking her as he seemed to taunt the beasts. She didn't need to be a xenobiologist to tell that these creatures hunted fear, and this human was practically serving himself up as dinner. "You're insane." Taylor gulped audibly, eyes wide. "You should have checked his credentials," he mumbled, half to himself, half to Mira. The human waved dismissively at the predators. "Look, they just need to lighten up. Did you hear the one about the human that walked into an alien bar? He ended up in a blender." Another ripple of laughter erupted from him before the surface of his charm clashed against the heavy atmosphere of the Deathworld. The fetters took a collective step back, confusion twisting in their eyes. Mira couldn't believe it. Here stood a being, who seemed so out of place in a world built upon survival and the crushing weight of nature's indifference. Yet his laughter packed what felt like untamed energy, the kind that had the power to shift the dynamics of this alien world. She could sense a flickering tension between the two forces, where human absurdity clashed against the primal need to prey. The moment stretched like a taut wire, every muscle in her body screaming at her to take control of the situation. Unable to wait longer, Mira turned her rifle, aiming it squarely at the lead Fetter prepared to charge. Honestly, your plan's a bad one. It won't work, she warned, hoping wildly to elbow reason back into his wayward thoughts. Let's make it work. Then he whooped, throwing his head back as if this was all a game. Perhaps I'm the real predator? Or do I need to show off a little more? The Fetters recoiled again, uncertainty flickering across their bestial features. In that moment, Mira lost her hesitation, entranced by the very human ridiculousness that had shifted the tension. Her sense of dread gradually melted into raw incredulity, her heart beginning to dance at the idea. Yes, yes. Let's see what you've got, she yelled, breaking through the tension with a surge of adrenaline to rally with this enigmatic presence. I might just teach you to quit scaring those around you. That was when the laughter boomed again, echoing across the clearing, undeniable and infectious, weaving through the hungry air. The predators of the Deathworld had run in fear when the humans started laughing. The laughter rolled over the clearing, a jarring sound against the harsh chorus of the Deathworld. The Fetters hesitated, their eyes shifting from anger to confusion. Mira felt the tension in the air fluctuate, a wave of potential swirling around them, urging her forward. Something primal had been awakened in these creatures, and the absurdity unfurling before her painted a new strategy. Mira Taylor's voice broke through, his urgency palpable. You should be careful. You're letting him distract us. Ignoring the familiar warning, Mira stepped closer to the human, who still reveled in drawing attention from the looming predators. What's your name? She asked, her voice low enough to stay hidden from the attention of the Fetters. Jax, he replied, not taking his eyes off the lead Fetter. And you're welcome. I would have thought you'd have a few good jokes lined up yourself. Lighten the mood. Turning her rifle slightly, she forcibly suppressed her instinct to admonish him for being reckless. Instead, she considered the sheer audacity of his humor, the way fear melted under the warmth of laughter. Do you realize how mad this is? You're playing with fire. But they're not fire, Jax countered boldly. They are predators. They thrive on fear, you said that. I'm giving them something to think about other than dinner. The wild gleam in his eyes made it clear he wasn't backing down. With every heartbeat, the stakes grew ever higher. A practical danger loomed in their very midst, while the opportunity for ingenuity twinkled nearby, tempting her like an unsuspecting star in the twilight. Mira hesitated but ultimately found a flicker of acceptance within herself. You've got a point. If humor could momentarily paralyze these beasts, then joining Jax could open new avenues for their survival. Mira, what are you doing? Taylor's voice darkened with concern. Ignoring him, she took a step forward, matching Jax's bravado with her own wild energy. All right, let's see how well we can entertain these thundering nightmares. Now you're talking. Jax beamed, instinctively nudging her shoulder as he drew a long breath, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. Get rid of that rifle. Time to improvise. As she lowered her weapon, the Fetters shifted back, intrigued by this bold turn of events. Jax then lunged into a whimsical impersonation of them, mimicking their lumbering swagger in a manner that was simultaneously disturbing and impressively accurate. The Fetters, momentarily baffled, paused to regard him with suspicion, their noses twitching in tandem. Come on, guys. You're the scariest monsters in the galaxy, Jax shouted with an exaggerated thrill. Yet there you are, just waiting for a puny little human to entertain you. What's next? A dance contest? To her astonishment, the lead Fetter tilted its massive, serrated head at Jax's antics. It didn't charge or roar. Instead, it seemed caught in a moment of genuine confusion. If this works, Mira thought, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her heart pounded, and the plan she hadn't known she was forming began to crystallize. She thought of the mission, of the crew's sacrifices, of the importance of survival, but the thought of returning home with nothing cut deeper. Drawing on her own sense of daring, she cleared her throat. Right. You want a contest? You boys and girls think you're tough. The Fetters remained oddly fixated on the spectacle, curiosity outright written on their monstrous faces. Mira felt a flicker of inspiration, tapping into the absurdity as she fell into Jax's rhythm. Let's see you dance, Fetter. I mean, I've seen boulders roll with more grace. There it was, a caustic challenge flung into the ether like a fire starter in the night. The Fetters recoiled for a split second, brow wrinkling with panic over the incongruity of the proposition. One Fetter grunted, as if comprehending the absurdity of being challenged in such an unorthodox manner, and Mira knew she had struck a nerve. Adrenaline heightening, she once again embraced the bizarre. Guys, if you don't dance, you'll miss out on the best part of life. I mean, look at Jax. He's got moves. What do you got? To her surprise, Jax expanded on her jesting, weaving tales of other creatures that had once competed with him in dance-off contexts. She elaborated on playful remarks, envisioning wild gatherings where humans swayed to music that rang through the refined alien strains. The humor bounded back and forth like a tennis game, each attempt escalating the stakes as the Fetters' postures shifted between skeptical and curious. In the midst of this, an unexpected shift occurred. One of the larger Fetters, separating itself from the pack, took a step forward, inching closer to the humans. It was as if the rhythm of the moment pulsated through its being, luring it into the dance. Mira felt the weight of the observers, her crew, the surrounding predators gather around this anecdotal absurdity unfolding in front of them. Now, that's more like it, Jax exclaimed, throwing unexpected hand gestures that somehow resembled misaligned dance moves. It looked ridiculous, yet infectious, the human spirit shining through otherwise bleak surroundings. With a few grumbles of intimidation, the lead Fetter affected a strange mimicry, the sinewy mass shifting clumsily to an invisible beat, causing stifled laughter to extort from Mira's party and cage the Fetters' attention. Everyone was caught up in this spirit's clashing environment, but unintentionally, it fueled the predator's interest more than fear. Then, as if gaining confidence, other Fetters began to follow suit, fulfilling a nascent desire to join in. For a fleeting breath, the Deathworld pivoted from instinct to instinctive camaraderie, their laughter melding with the wild curiosity of the forest. New ripples surged across the clearing, dense with tension but also energized spirit. Was it possible that they could lead the carnivorous beings into a moment of peace? A time when instinct wasn't the guiding principle? However, as Jax let out another exaggerated whoop, declaring the Fetters' newfound moves impressive, Mira implored with urgency, her excitement fading. Don't get complacent, stay alert. They're still predators. Sensing her concern, he shot her a cocky grin. A little fun never hurt, right? Besides, we can use this to our advantage. The more we engage these guys, the more we can redefine our relationship with them. That was at the root of humanity, the primal urge to connect. It was genius, and despite the insane discourse they had instigated, there was a veil of understanding bridging the divide, however improbable it seemed. Just as they collectively began to sway, something like determination circled back. The lead Fetter loomed forward, almost protectively. But the air changed, a thrum of discord echoed through the ground, the tremor of danger, along with a rustling in the thicket, drawing all gazes toward the sour direction. Eyes wide with fear, Mira and the team turned. A competing group of Fetters, larger and fiercer, emerged from the shadows, their postured bodies snarled deep, primed to confront their competitors. Get into formation, Mira breathed, pointing her rifle back at the pack. The laughter faded, replaced with a heavy silence laden with tension. The drama of their odd union faded, leaving only raw instinct to flood the newfound dynamic. Jax raised his hands, a flash of realization breaking through his bravado. Mira, they want to fight. The once playful environment transformed into a battlefield, the earlier bond forgotten as the energy shifted. But she could feel their cooperative venture fracture, and the urge to run kicked in for the other humans, catching in the throats as they stared down the encroaching predators. No, Mira yelled, her heart hammering as the world around her spiraled out of control. We can't let this end. We came together. Oh, this isn't how it ends. Yet in the impending chaos, she held tight to the conviction that space for ingenuity remained. With a surge of newfound resolve pushing forward, she realized they were teetering on the precipice of war, not only against the Fetters but also with the very nature of survival itself. As the grunts echoed through the air, she gathered what fragments of the bond they'd formed, igniting a fire in her chest. Get ready, she shouted towards Jax, igniting in their memories the flicker of hope that their bizarre dance could transform full circle. Tension demands a shake-up, Jax replied through gritted teeth, and for a fleeting moment they both shared an irrepressible belief humor was merely the precursor to the grit they would need. The Deathworld, it seemed, demanded more than laughter. It demanded courage, cunning, and perhaps a little madness to overcome their shared plight. The tension hung thick in the air, a tangible force that buzzed with anticipation. Mira's heart raced as the Fetter pack lunged forward from the shadows, their menacing forms ready to clash with the hopeful aura they had built through laughter. She could almost feel Jax's energy shifting alongside the surrounding humans, whose apprehension came in waves, each breaking against their nervous resolve. "Get back to back," Mira shouted, raising her pulse rifle defiantly as she circled, urging Taylor and the other crew members into a tighter formation. The array of Fetters huddled in a menacing semicircle, snarls punctuating the moment with vicious intent. In a heartbeat, it felt as though their initial cleverness was fading, swallowed by the overwhelming threat of true carnivorous rage. But Jax, flanked closely by Mira, remained undeterred. His smile still held that manic spark, the kind that challenged adversity with sheer absurdity. "Hey, you know what they say," he hollered, his voice a beacon amid chaos. "When the going gets tough, the tough get goofing." Before Mira could process his words, he spun, pivoting on his heel to direct an exuberant pose at the approaching pack, striking a mock-serious supposition that drew incredulous stares from both his human companions and the advancing Fetters. "Tell me none of you are scared of a little laughter." The lead Fetter halted in its tracks, confusion lacing its features as it squinted at Jax, caught off guard by the display. Mira barely had time to register the transformation this spontaneous act of absurdity ignited in the atmosphere. Could this improvisational battle tactic give them an edge? "Now is not the time for jokes," Mira huffed, glancing back and forth between the Predators and Jax. Yet the tension seemed to thrum with curiosity rather than hostility. Inspired, she grabbed onto Jax's ethos and shouted, intertwining her voice with his. "You heard him. Who cares about being scary? Everyone knows it's more fun to laugh. Look what we've got here, everyone." A shot of adrenaline fueled her sense of strategy as she stepped forward, drawing from the absurd layering of their playful antics. "Let's see the real reason you think you can scare us. Show us your strongest moves," Jax encouraged, mimicking overblown fighting stances with impeccable flair and exaggerated mockery of the beasts before them. The tempo escalated, blending laughter and daring, appealing to something primal within the Fetters that trembled on the thin edges of instinct and camaraderie. The lead Fetter tilted its head once more, calculating, redirecting its aggression inward. The air crackled with uncertainty. The laughter did not induce fear but rather an opening. Churning with newfound energy, Mira stepped next to Jax, edging the line further. "Come on, we did it last time, let's make them our friends through a little dance-off." Tension hung on the cusp of a knife's edge as the surrounding humans joined their absurdity, driven by the faint hope that they might capitalize on this collision course of life and death through sheer creativity. They started clapping rhythmically, awkward but spirited, urging the Fetters to join in on the scene, offered to them a full-blown dance competition that blurred the line between prey and predator. The crowd of Fetters hesitated, their snarls fading as they regarded the spectacle unfolding with bemusement. The lead Fetter finally impassively turned toward its companions, unsure. Mira spotted hesitation among the beasts, an unexpected mix between curiosity and uncertainty. "Let me show you how it's done," Jax encouraged, rallying the humans in a makeshift chant. "One step, 2 steps, we can challenge each other right here." He began to sway exaggeratedly, twisting his arms while bouncing rhythmically on his heels, even inviting some of the humans to join in. With each exaggerated movement, the atmosphere lightened. Some of the Fetters perched closer, intrigued by this strange display, eyes flickering with what could only be described as bad-tempered wonder. Mira felt the pulse of possibility clash against her sense of urgency, a heartbeat lined with adrenaline washed over her. Then, unexpectedly, one of the smaller Fetters broke through the passive barrier. She raised a leg awkwardly, attempting to mimic Jax's fervent enthusiasm. The humans gasped collectively. It was a monumental moment, one spotlighting the possibility of bond. The gesture unleashed a swell of energy. The humans exploded into cheers, laughter ringing through the air as they witnessed the absurd audacity take form. Encouraged by this amusing interruption of the hunt, they grabbed onto the newfound whimsy sensibility, which transformed the clear threat into something more humanized. "You've got it," Jax boomed, flashing a victorious grin at Mira. "Show us your coolest moves," he gestured to the remaining Fetters, spirits surging in unison. And as if on cue, The Fetters began to engage a series of jarring, ungainly movements echoing Jax's initial direction. Weight shifted uneasily from one powerful limb to another, jaws snapping, and just a surprising if misguided synchronicity emerged, one that brought the humans and the alien predators closer together. Mira sensed the urgency of the situation evolve from dire to bizarre, a confluence spurred by laughter, an irresistible repulsion against violence birthed from cunning and creativity. And just like that, the Fetters' aggression dimmed as they redirected their energy toward the dance-off, urging a new sense of community. Sparks ignited in her chest, realizing that vulnerability to allow laughter could truly be the weapon they needed against the primal instincts of the Deathworld. Each pass of absurdity propelled the next, and together they danced, the humans breaking boundaries, the Fetters cracking their monstrous facades for a moment of shared joy. Then suddenly, another group of Fetters, larger and more aggressive, emerged forcefully. The dance tentatively ceased midway. The clarion call of danger spiked the air as both humans and Fetters froze, yet Mira's mind raced, refusing to abandon the connection they had forged. "Hey everyone. How about a remix?" Jax exclaimed, swiftly pulling a diffused tension from a frame that could rush back to violence. "Dance battles. Just like they do back home. Let's dance for dominance instead." The humans erupted in laughter, an infectious spirit spreading as they paired off to challenge the newer group. It was as simple as that. The absurdity of their situation transformed into a new contest, a pivot where survival yielded to adaptation and creativity. As the surging energy uncoiled in pure instinct, the humans formed a line, showcasing their best dance moves to challenge the newcomers while beckoning the confused Fetters to join in the chaos. How glittering an endeavor in the clutches of danger! It was a riot of motion, an unexpected clash against the pristine world of the Deathworld. The Fetters lunged but faltered, confusion harmonizing with jovial roars as the humans threw themselves into the competition relentlessly. With each beat, the atmosphere brightened. The Fetters began to sway again, adopting bizarre human movements, stumbling but, in their big strides, filling the void of aggression with an experience wholly newfound. In an ecstatic frenzy, Mira allowed hope to spiral within her. This utterly chaotic gathering had become more than a misguided dance-off. They found community amidst one another, and in that moment the spark of transcendence ignited. When shadows of combat loomed, they responded with laughter and creativity, a conscious melding of cultures pressing against the unseen wall of instinct. "Never thought I'd be teaching dance moves to creatures that want to eat me," she exclaimed, twisting amid the creatures, their large forms dwarfing her but now appearing fiercely protective, perhaps even curious. To her growing surprise, the larger group of Fetters eventually withdrew, a collective awareness setting in as the absurd encapsulated the danger of race against energy. They grew uncertain, looking to the vibrant efforts of camaraderie unraveling before them, choosing to observe instead of exert dominance through aggression. As humanity and their new allies continued to engage, laughter braided into something more than instinct, a bridge stretching over chasms drawn by fear. They were no longer predators nor prey, but partners united through shared vulnerability. Finally, as the last pulse of frenetic energy ebbed, the humans and Fetters began to slow, panting but exhilarated. A rare silent understanding flowed between them, forging a bond that transcended primal instincts and lit a new path for coexistence, powered by laughter. The challenge they had invited transformed seamlessly into a celebration of respect. "Look at that," Jax shouted, breathless but positively glowing with mischief. "Who'd have thought a dance-off could end in hunt?" Mira couldn't help but laugh, feeling resilient lines of experience redraw themselves. It had started with absurdity and culminated in collaboration, an unforgettable dance-off that proved they had faced down the chaos and emerged with something far more significant than survival. Not only had they disarmed the potential for violence, but they had initiated an unintentional alliance that held promise for future coexistence. In that moment, amid the glimmering dust settling upon the Deathworld, Mira grasped a vibrant truth in the fevered dance of existence. Amidst raging death and danger, humanity's tendency to laugh, adapt, and create could sway the fiercest of predators. They ventured together, not away from fear but alongside it, transforming the very essence of the Deathworld's threats into an opportunity for connection. As the beats symphonized into a quiet crescendo, the new chapter unfolded amid the stars, a promise of shared laughter sprawling ahead, a thread of hope interwoven in the tapestry of existence, sustaining beyond fear of the Deathworld.